All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today we're looking at one of the absolute pillars of Indian contract law. Decided by the Privy Council way back in 1903, the Mohori Bibee case is basically the ultimate masterclass in how legal systems handle the concept of capacity.
And it all starts with this one wild question. What actually happens if a minor takes out a massive $20,000 loan, spends the cash, and then just refuses to pay it back? I mean, picture it. A teenager goes toe-to-toe with a wealthy moneylender, looks him in the eye and says, "Yeah, I'm underage, so I legally owe you nothing." Can they literally just walk away? Well, to untangle this 120-year-old mystery, here's our roadmap. We'll breeze through the rules of competency, the facts of the case, the core legal issues, the landmark judgment, estoppel and restitution, and finally, the real-world exceptions. Okay, Section 1, the rules of competency. Who can contract? Because before we can even argue about a broken promise, we gotta know if a legal contract existed in the first place. Now, Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act is where the magic happens. It draws this really rigid line in the sand. The law doesn't vibe with guesswork here. It explicitly spells out exactly who is legally competent to make a binding promise. Breaking that down, you've basically got three non-negotiable hurdles. Number one, you've got to be the age of majority, usually 18 in India. Number two, you need a sound mind, the actual capacity to make a rational choice. And three, you can't be disqualified by any other law. So right off the bat, a minor trips on hurdle number one. They just don't have the legal maturity to shoulder the heavy implications of a contract. Moving on to Section 2, the facts of the case, a minor's mortgage. Let's see how this teenage legal drama actually went down. So the year is 1895. Dharmodas Ghose, who is very much under 18, mortgages his property to a moneylender named Dharmodas for $20,000. That was a ton of money back then. But here's the crazy part. The moneylender's agent, Kedarnath, totally knew the kid was underage. In fact, Dharmodas' own mother had sent a formal letter explicitly warning them like, "Hey, my son is an infant in the eyes of the law." But they did the deal anyway. Naturally, shortly after, Dharmodas and his mom turn around and sue to cancel the whole thing based entirely on his minority. Which brings us to Section 3, the core legal issues. Void versus voidable. This is the main battlefield for the courts.
We've got to get this distinction absolutely right because the whole case literally hinges on it. See, a voidable agreement is actually valid until somebody decides to cancel it, like if you were forced or threatened into signing a document. But a void agreement, that has zero legal effect from the very second it's made. It's a phantom. So the court had to ask, was this teenager's contract just voidable, or was it entirely, absolutely void?
Section 4, the landmark judgment. Privy Council ruling. Let's see how the court finally dropped the hammer on this one. The Privy Council looked at Section 11 and ruled that a minor has absolutely zero capacity to contract. None. Because of that complete lack of capacity, the agreement wasn't just voidable. It was void ab initio. That is your golden legal maxim for today. Void from the very beginning. The mortgage was completely invalid, meaning the moneylender's claim to the property just evaporated into thin air. On to Section 5, estoppel and restitution, recovering the money. Because I know what you're thinking. What about the cash the kid already took?
The moneylender was desperate, right? They argued, come on, this kid lied to us. He presented himself as an adult. They wanted to use the rule of estoppel, basically saying the minor should be legally blocked from using his age as an excuse since he faked it. Does the law actually protect a lender in that situation?
The court was like, nope, you absolutely cannot be deceived if you already know the truth. Remember that warning letter from the mom? Since the moneylender's agent knew the actual truth, estoppel completely fails here. Plus, the court established a much broader rule. Generally speaking, estoppel just doesn't apply against minors anyway. The law is meant to protect them from their own reckless choices. Okay, so if estoppel is out, what about the doctrine of restitution? If a contract fails, doesn't the kid at least have to hand back the 20,000 rupees he got out of it? Once again, the court said no, and the reasoning is brilliant. Restitution only applies to contracts that actually existed and then got canceled. Here, the contract was void ab initio. It legally never existed. So there is no contractual liability whatsoever. The kid kept his property and literally just walked away. Wild, right? Now for Section 6, exceptions to the rule. When are minors liable? Because wait, is it really just a total free-for-all for minors out there? Thankfully, no. The law is highly practical.
Under Section 68, if you provide a minor with basic life necessities, think food, clothing, shelter, or education, you absolutely can be reimbursed. But, and this is a massive but, you can only recover it from the minor's property. They are not personally liable. No property? You're out of luck. Also, contracts that are purely for the minor's benefit or valid contracts made by a legal guardian are totally fine. The goal is to shield minors, not prevent them from surviving or getting an education. All right, we've covered a ton of ground. But if you literally only remember one thing for your exams from this whole explainer, make it this definitive one-line rule. A contract with a minor is absolutely void ab initio. They cannot legally bind themselves. Period. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If the law goes to such absolute extremes to protect minors from predatory lenders, how do we make sure innocent everyday merchants don't get completely ripped off when they unknowingly sell to them? It is a massive balancing act, and one that contract law is still juggling today. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer, and keep questioning how the rules of our society are actually built.